Joining us today is James Kuch, Digital Marketing Specialist for Yeo Yeo CPAs and Advisors, a leading accounting firm in Michigan. His specialties include digital marketing, website content development and management, marketing communications, SEO, project planning, social media, HubSpot, and email marketing. Welcome, James.
Thanks for having me, Meg. Looking forward to being on.
Yeah, so this has been a fun conversation. So James and I are in a few AIM circles together. So I feel like when my firm, McGuire Sponsel, was starting to kind of vet out new options in our transition from Pardot, you had mentioned HubSpot and a few others had recommended other platforms. So I feel like this conversation has been a long time coming and excited to get into it today.
Well, hopefully I can be helpful. I'm not sure how it's going to go, but we're gonna give it our best shot, right? So
Absolutely. So your firm is in a very unique position, right? Whereas you don't have currently a CRM in place, but you do have a well-structured marketing automation platform. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's well, we were kind of joking before the pod started, but we're kind of backwards, right? We got on HubSpot because we definitely had at that time, which was around 2020, we definitely had a need for marketing, additional marketing technology support and marketing automation, and we knew it. We wanted to do, go a little bit farther than where we were, and just have the best tools possible in front of us, and I think we're definitely taking advantage of them on the marketing side. But like you mentioned, we don't have a CRM, so where we've made a lot of progress with marketing and marketing communications in HubSpot, we are now feeling the pain of not having that CRM. So that's been the, I guess, kind of those growing pains that we're feeling as our firm continues to grow, and now we're seeing these additional needs, throughout everything, really, but specifically in this space as well.
But I feel like that's every marketer's dream, right? You get to build out your marketing automation platform however you want without the limitations or constraints of what already exists in a CRM system. So it just has to be such an exciting opportunity, right, to build something from the ground up and then now almost not dictate, but that leads your decision in the CRM system, and you can have a little bit more impact. So I'm curious on, how much your team is. I don't want to get too much into CRM because we'll have a separate episode on that, but how just your experience and development within HubSpot for your firm has contributed to those CRM discussions.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We, it is very exciting to have the opportunity in front of us, right? We know what tools are available. We have, experience using all of these tools. It's just, all right, the hard part is the slow steps to get there. And, we know we're going to eventually be there. We have to be there. But we're in also a unique position where with our firm, it's not just Yeo Yeo CPAs. We're technically 5 companies under the Yeo Yeo name, with technology, medical billing, wealth management, and now HR. We have databases all over the place. We've got different companies using different things, and it doesn't all just flow into HubSpot. It'd be nice if everybody was using HubSpot, but we're using one instance of HubSpot for all of these different different opportunities as well. So again, I think we have the experience. It's just, I think, where we again struggle with too is on the bandwidth side, where where are those next steps going to be coming from, and there's a little bit of that push and pull as we're continuing to work through it.
Absolutely. Well, I think you brought up an interesting point, right? With so many different companies, different platforms and processes already established, how do you merge all of that into one productive system? So I don't know if you could share some insight into what are some of the other programs, maybe some of the other companies were using before you merged with them, and then we can kind of lead into why you guys chose HubSpot, how things compare, and kind of go from there.
Yeah, so our CPA firm uses Practice CS, and it's a great tool, for that side of the business. Yeah. We're able to track quite a bit of client data, and do a lot of work in there. Technology firm, I can give you some insight there too.
Yeah.
Yeo Yeo Technology uses ConnectWise, which has some CRM components in it as well, and they can track leads, track clients, prospects, things like that, and continue to communicate through there. Um, with HubSpot, what it's kind of allowed us to do, even though we know where some of these pain points are, I think the biggest one is the manual aspect of it, where if you had a CRM in place, a lot of things get automated, and
Yeah.
if you want to disengage with somebody who's on your list, you can, or if somebody gets added, they flow right in. Right now, our marketing team has to do that kind of manually, where you've got somebody who's exporting to Excel, and then somebody who's helping clean the list, and then by the time it gets to me, it's ready to upload. So then you're taking little bits of pieces from a handful of people and then bringing it to HubSpot. Once it's in HubSpot, it's working great. We're able to get these communications out. We're able to get our campaigns up and running. Our firm sends out a lot of e-alerts, so if there's things that are changing. ESTA's been really big here lately. That's another one. We've got a lot of communications going on that. We're able to push those out, but the process to get there is definitely a little bit of a long road.
Absolutely. So, we touched on some of the challenges of the multiple service lines and how everything's feeding into one. Maybe switch gears. You had mentioned, right, e-blasts and email campaigns are, I would say, one of your biggest deliverables. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, with newsletters too. Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
Perfect. So maybe let's switch gears and talk a little bit about some of the automations that you leverage within HubSpot, since you're so constricted, coming up into that point. How do you leverage, how do you take a tool like HubSpot to increase your functionality and be able to support all the 5 different lines that you support?
Yeah, so this is something, and I kind of going back to something you said earlier, where it's exciting to build, and have a tool that does these things. We are actually working on our digital campaigns for the current year, and we've got some ideas on how we want to do that. And the exciting part about that is HubSpot allows us to kind of plot these things out in advance, where we know where, if we're talking about HubSpot and we're talking about campaigns and email marketing, that can flow into a specific, lead capture form. But we can also tie that in with our digital campaigns as well. So we're trying to think about all of these pieces at one time and how we can be most successful. But the good thing is we don't need to rely on Practice CS on the CPA side to continue to market to people who come in through digital ad campaigns or any of our email marketing. Whether we transfer them manually from Practice or not, HubSpot still does exist outside of that, and that allows us to continue to have those drip campaigns where we're continuously trying to stay in front of people, whether it's starting with digital ads, whether it's starting with an email campaign or a newsletter. If we have a good solid piece at the end, whether it's an ebook, we have some webinars coming up that we're working on, a lot of different deliverables that we can have at the end of the road. HubSpot allows us to keep that going, and there's really no stopping us from, even though we don't have a CRM, it doesn't really hinder us from marketing, just kind of puts a cap on us marketing effectively, I would say.
Well, when you were first kind of implementing, back in time, when you were first implementing HubSpot, where did you start in terms of campaigns? Nurture, ongoing, what was your first build out and kind of the lesson learned from there?
Yeah, I think a lot of our campaigns, especially early on, have been around name awareness. We did a lot of that early on. And I guess maybe to take one step back I should mention that, for a long time, all the way up until 2020, we were marketing through Constant Contact, which has a ton of limitations, right? There's a lot of things we can't do. We don't have to get into that. I think people know, if you're trying to send campaigns, if you're trying to send campaigns through Constant Contact, you're fairly limited. But, when we first started working in HubSpot, we took some of our core services and built campaigns around each of those. So outsourced accounting is a great example.
Okay.
And that one continues to come back around, and we're actually going to be looking to repurpose that campaign again, because there's really good content there. And if you think about where we were in 2020, there was a lot of communications, a lot of change that needed to go out at that time because everything was changing around us. So we had to continue to be on top of it and continue to have the best information, really share our expertise and our knowledge of the industry. And by continuing to keep those core services out in front of our contacts, we were able to continue to leverage, all of these things and hopefully drive, good, meaningful leads back to the firm.
Well, that's incredible that one of your first campaigns is still relevant and engaging today, at least worth resurfacing. You guys leverage workflows, automations, segmentation lists, along with those email campaigns, correct?
Yeah, we do, and touch on this part of it again. The lack of CRM is a hard part for us because we do all of these things, and where you have that CRM in place, again, there's the automation there that really helps you. We do a lot of it manually still. So, when you say separation lists, we definitely have, obviously like anybody else, we have people who unsubscribe, and our lists, our database is very large, so we got to make sure that we have proper segmentation for something like that. But also, when you're speaking of the accounting industry, even technology industry as well, and like for us, medical billing, we have not only a boatload of services that we're trying to market, but we're also trying to market to the specific industries as well. So we have to segment quite frequently amongst all of our main industries that we focus on. So if you think about medical billing for us in our example, it's great. We can share a lot of our healthcare services through our CPA firm, but also we have the medical billing component. So we have to say, when you're thinking about it in HubSpot and you make a list, you would say like CPA healthcare clients, and then medical billing healthcare clients, medical billing prospects, Yeo and Yeo CPA's healthcare prospects. Sometimes those communications make sense for us to send to everybody. If we have a healthcare newsletter that needs to go out, or an e-alert, and specifically, we want to make sure all of that stuff goes out. But if you're doing something like, say, an anniversary for the company, like 30 years of medical billing, that is a little bit more of a specific list. You don't want that going to everybody, maybe in that instance, right? So you have to segment. We have to think of a multitude of ways to make sure that we're communicating with the right people at the right time.
And once those segmented lists are built, it's so easy to personalize your content and create dynamic content within HubSpot. So full disclosure, we are in the middle of our implementation into HubSpot. We're just now kind of building out some of our initial campaigns. We haven't run any of them yet, but we're playing around, creating templates, the segmentation was one of our biggest pain points with the coming from Salesforce, and we had Pardot. And now, there's just so many things, especially with firms like at a national level, or,
Right.
You want to distribute content to people within different industries or regions, or you can create the same piece of content and make small different tweaks that would apply to those audiences. So I think once you get set up one way or another, whether it's automated from your CRM or built out a little bit more manually, there's so many cool things that you can do with it, above and beyond just being able to send out emails more efficiently.
Yeah.
So I think
Meg, to hop in there, I think that's where you guys are at too. I think is a pretty cool place to be as well. When you think about how we're structured, and I guess just to kind of share, not to share every single pain point that we have, but when we are segmenting lists and we're trying to target based on campaigns and things like that, I feel like our net can be pretty wide, and we try to narrow things down and get as targeted as possible. And I think we understand as a firm when you have a CRM in place and you can track specific actions a little bit better,
Yes.
we can definitely target at a higher level, and that's where we're getting to. Kind of baby stepping our way there, but we see the opportunity, and that's an exciting thing to think about.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I was not prepared for, I think, to the best that we could going into this migration was our content strategy. So, right, we're building out these segmentation lists. We're building out our email campaigns at same timing as you for the remainder of 2025. But what we didn't take into account is how we're structuring the subscription lists.
Mm-hmm.
So in our minds, it's practice line, right? Everything's siloed by this. Here's how we're going to organize it within our campaigns. Here's how we organize it on the back end.
Yep.
But it didn't align with our subscription list. We would leverage for us all CPA list for mailing within Salesforce, and filter it by relationship manager, salesperson, whatever you want to call it. But we didn't have that align with the subscription options at the end of every email. And it just felt like why didn't we think about it this way? But when you take on a big project like this, you start to realize how interconnected everything is.
Right.
And like, okay, yeah, well, we've just been doing it this way all along. And we're like, okay, well, now let's take a step back. And so now we have to change how we're tagging, like in our social media, how we're handling like SEO and just addressing our entire like analytics and reporting. So that way everything aligns from beginning to end.
Yeah.
Because a huge part of why you would invest in a marketing automation platform is not only for the efficiency, but the reporting side of it, which we haven't even touched on.
Yep.
But, not figuring out, hey, okay, here's what we want to see, once we complete all of the things that they're planning, and here are the different lenses that we want to be able to see as we're sharing with our teams internally. And so it was like, okay, well, pause the brakes. Let's, there's just so many layers of preparation that, there's no other way to get into it until you get into it.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I was going to say too. It's, you don't know what you don't know. And over time, you start picking up on more and more of these things. It'd be great to have the entire playbook right in front of you, but everybody's different. Every firm is a little bit different. This isn't specifically HubSpot related, but last year in 2024, we got into a little bit more of an aggressive digital advertising campaign throughout the year, and we thought for sure going into it, like, hey, we know what we know. We want to increase this. We want to increase this brand awareness. We want to increase certain industries that we want to, get out in front of a little bit more. And what we found is we were doing things a little bit backwards, where our ads were starting to compete with each other, and they were starting to fight, and they were really taking away from our target audience. So in 2025, like you said, when you have those analytics and that data in front of you, and we have, I should say, we're not doing all this in-house. We have a great partner up in Michigan that helps us with some of this stuff. But we're completely flipping our focus. And we are going to try to, instead of focusing on those industries specifically, we now know, hey, we're going to get more bang for our buck if we take some core services and we spread those out a little bit more. And we put more resources into kind of targeting everybody who might apply for these services. That was a big learning point for us last year. And I think the same can apply when you're talking about, what you guys are doing on the HubSpot side as well, and for your campaigns.
Yeah, it's almost like it's so hard to pick a point to start because there's so many variables and so many considerations that you almost have to say, what, we're going to do with it this way, and then we'll just adjust as we keep going, because otherwise you're just stuck in this permanent brainstorm session. Well, okay, this is a great point. Aside from that, maybe what are some of the big lessons learned after you first sign on with HubSpot, getting everything up and running? If someone came to you today, like I did a few months ago, and said, hey, we're considering updating our marketing automation, what should we consider? Why would we consider HubSpot?
Yeah, I think, there's beyond the campaigns, which I think maybe I'll start there. If you're thinking about, really fleshing out your campaigns, really try to map it out as best you can. And I'm fortunate here at Yeo and Yo. We've got a great team of people who are really good at content writing. really good at graphic work. And, by the time it gets to me, there's a handoff piece, and we all work together really, really well. So having that team in place, but also having the map that says, okay, we want this blog post to go to this form, to go to this ebook, kind of mapping that structure out beforehand is going to be super valuable, and HubSpot's going to allow you to do that. The other thing that I'll add too is HubSpot's more than just those simple marketing automations. We do all of our social media inside of HubSpot now as well, and that's been a huge lifesaver, especially for us when you're talking about all the different companies.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we have a ton of social media accounts that we have to maintain, but it allows us to be pretty nimble and pretty quick with what we want to do. A big focus for us here at Yo and Yo is focusing on and sharing our people, because our people are our greatest asset, right? So by having the social calendar in front of us that HubSpot has, between myself and my colleagues here at Yo, we're able to push out video campaigns and all these different things. They may not lead to, leads at the end of the day, but they're vital for us and for our culture and the things that we want to do. So having a platform that allows us to do that as well is very important to us. And I think that other firms may find that important as well, as you're looking at the entire picture.
That's very interesting you just brought this up. So we are currently in the middle of planning for our annual firm retreat. And so along with, we're in HubSpot, it's not 100% live, but our first test we have a great opportunity to do an internal campaign. Mm-hmm. So I think the more now people within our firm start realizing, hey, HubSpot's not just about marketing, right? There's a lot of opportunity just for internal comms or for recruiting. There's so many different ways that you can leverage it, which has been super exciting. We get to do a little bit of more fun projects, but then also you kind of have to put the guardrails up a little bit. Like, hold on, we're still figuring out here. Right. We can't take it here yet. But I'm so glad you brought this up. Tons of opportunity internally for the automations and workflows. A lot of marketing teams are being asked to do more HR or admin style tasks now, just because we have the functionality, whether it's through AI or tools like HubSpot. They already have templates in place for birthdays, anniversaries, other onboarding style communications. So I think that's just one small area of it, but I can tell our team is already so excited to get in and figure things out and take advantage of it.
Meg, we use that quite a bit. I mean, our social calendar is usually very, very full. And too, I think, the other thing to touch on, another great feature, is when you get into HubSpot, and I'm sure you know this by, getting onboarded, but brand standards is a big deal for us, especially when you're talking about how many different entities of Yo and Yo that have to be in the system. It allows us to not only have our palette that we need, but we can be really quick with it. And once you have your graphics templates in the system, you can, if you're like us and you're pushing out pretty relevant communication very quickly, we can move, if there's a law change or we have to get an e-alert out really fast, we can move really, really fast on those and be super accurate. The only hard part for us at the end of the day is the non-CRM component, making sure that we are up, we have our contact database up to date. But, once that's in place for us down the road, again, even faster, even more efficient, and that's a big value to the marketing team and to the firm at the end of the day, because you're out there, you're out front of of everyone else with really knowledgeable communications. It really shows you as a thought leader in the industry.
Absolutely. I think that was one of our biggest pain points when we decided to make the switch. Just that Pardot email builder. We always say that Pardot's Salesforce, long lost stepson, that they just stopped investing in. And I'm sure anybody in the same boat feels the same pain points where, we technically had A/B testing, but we couldn't do A/B testing because we had to build it in a different builder. Why are there two separate builders within Pardot? So many questions. But I think our biggest pain point was it would take so long, and you'd have to have some kind of coding experience, and just to go through rounds of edits and changes, you have to go back in the code and switch some little things, versus within HubSpot, it's okay, here's a layout, drag and drop, let's see what it would be like to invert the colors, or let's swap out that photo. I mean, the ease of use for it, it doesn't take much knowledge for anybody to kind of come in and pick it up. If your team's being added, or switching roles and responsibilities, someone's coming in and covering for you while you're out. I think that's one of the big benefits that we even talked about, just because it's just part of HubSpot. But I think the adoption within our firm is going to skyrocket, because no one took the time to understand part of it, and that's a waste of their time, frankly.
Right.
But to be able to showcase, hey, here's what we're doing, here's behind the scenes, and then people are like, oh, I could do that. Like, well, well, how could we use that within our team? And then the light bulbs start to go off. So I think the campaigns that you mentioned earlier, obviously, a huge reason for upgrading, whether it's HubSpot or another platform like it. There's lots of options, but obviously with both of our experiences, those are going to be primarily the platforms that we're talking about. But the campaigns, and then just the ease of use, I think already we've seen such a difference in.
And the agility too, I would add.
Yes.
Just the it kind of goes hand in hand with ease of use, but I think too, touching on another point that you just mentioned, if somebody's away from the office, if you have a team like ours, somebody can hop in and they can get communications out just as quickly as if you were there or not. It's good to make sure that everybody's kind of cross-trained throughout the platform and can back you up in that instance, which is always really good.
Absolutely. And that's one thing that we kind of uncovered, and we're diving in this week on the campaigns, is you can leave comments, you can provide some context on the history, not only establish goals and budget and track all of that, so no matter where you're at on the marketing team or your responsibilities, you have lots of visibility into the engagement and budget and ROI. But to your point, if someone's hopping in, they're like, okay, well, what exactly was the original intent of this? What are we hoping to achieve? Okay, here's where we can pop in and keep things flowing in the meantime. But I feel like we both sound like paid HubSpot influencers. But no, there's a huge shift. I feel like last year at Summit, we were talking about this with many firms that had made the switch or considering it. It's popped up in many of our circles. I think it's a huge shift in the industry. Well, I want to talk quickly. I know we're almost at time, but quickly about like the workflows and triggers. We mentioned some of the ongoing campaigns. I was hoping that you could share maybe just one example of how maybe some of the triggers that you've set up, so people maybe coming into a platform like HubSpot for the first time could kind of understand of, hey, here's where we can bring value to the team. So whether it's, you've mentioned forms or downloading, whatever the case may be, maybe just give us an example of a trigger that you have and like a workflow attached to it.
Yeah, so, I think going back to, again, the forms, right? You can set up, when you create a form for whether it's an ebook, webinar, whatever that might be, on the back end, you can trigger anybody that you need in the firm, as long as they have a HubSpot account, right? But if, let's say, the sales manager for our technology company, for example, say he needs to be notified of a current campaign that's running, and we've got a possible lead because they filled out this form. We can do that. We can add that person to it. Typically for us, we have somebody on the business development side who kind of manages some of that, but we do keep in mind that there's going to be instances where we may want to have other people that are also keyed in on these triggers, so that we can, see what's going on. Maybe somebody who's kind of on the fringes of the campaign can even see what's going on from time to time. But we try to, on our side, we try to score these leads when they come in as best we can, and we've got great people in line to do some of that stuff. But depending on what type of, the size of your firm or the size of your team, you can really flesh these things out to, if a lead comes in, or registration comes in, something like that, you can have somebody who's kind of on it right there, right then and there. You can kind of task that person with doing any sort of follow-up that you might need. If it's not automated, some follow-up might be automated, but if there's, to the point where maybe you need to make a phone call or an email, a more personal touch, you can have parameters in place as some of these items are coming in that you can keep the conversation going, keep the the funnel, right? The sales cycle, keep that going.
Absolutely. And then if you had a CRM system built up, which you guys are headed in that direction, right? You can identify those territories and kind of automate that marketing to sales handshake. There's so much capacity there.
Yep.
I want to, as we wrap, I have a couple rapid fire questions for you.
Let's do it. Yeah.
I try and do this with every episode. Okay. So one, what's your favorite functionality within HubSpot?
There's one that I really like, and it's changed names now, but it's the CTAs section. You can create pop-ups, and you can have them go to any specific page you want on the website, or specific, if there's, let's say for us, if it's agribusiness, we can have a pop-up specifically for anything agribusiness. So if we have a webinar coming up, if the URL mentions agribusiness, we have a nice graphic. That pop-up can come up on the middle of the screen or on the side, and we can put the registration to that thing right there on the page.
Interesting.
Those pop-ups are pretty cool. We just relocated one of our offices near Detroit, and we were looking for ways to be dynamic and show off, like, hey, we've moved. And the pop-ups were like, that's one of our best solutions, because our website, we're working on that, needs a little bit more work. That's like our next project for this year. But the pop-ups from HubSpot, once it's tied into with your website, you can be pretty dynamic with those. So that's
it's almost taking it one step further from like a playbook and a chatbot.
Yeah.
Because you don't need the engagement to open that up. And okay, well, I'm taking a note. We're definitely going to look into that this afternoon. And what a great use case for it, right? We've moved any kind of fun announcement.
Yeah, absolutely.
But webinar registrations, okay.
Yeah, you can do forms through them. We've done it a handful of times. We don't have anything running recently. Right now, we're trying to get that awareness out that our office has moved. But yeah, there's some flexibility there. You can definitely do a lot.
Okay. Second question, maybe what's next in your HubSpot playbook? I'm sure you guys are focused on also researching, vetting a CRM. Are there any projects that you would like to accomplish within HubSpot that you just haven't started yet, or you have on deck?
Yeah, I think the big thing for us and what's next inside of HubSpot is getting our downloadables refreshed. We want to do a lot with our 2025 digital marketing campaigns, and it's nice that we have a really great head start with a lot of this stuff, but we definitely want to refresh what we've got to make it a little bit more relatable, but at the same time still as effective. And I think we're going to be able to do that. We've got Taylor on our team over here at Yeo Yeo. She's working really hard to do some really good work for us and with the content that we need to get out there. But I think that's our next big step inside of HubSpot, outside of the CRM realm, which we touched on. But yeah, that's the next one.
Which, for even that instance, HubSpot almost acts as like a content management system, right? Instead of having to go everywhere, you just go back. Okay, what did we do last year? What do we need to update? So
yeah, and the mapping still exists, for the original. And even if you turn things off, you fire things back up and you refresh, you rebrand, or whatever that may be. The roadmap is still there for you to go back and look at what you've done and see if you can do it a little bit different.
Perfect. And we touched on this earlier, but one of the things I remember, I'm going to ask you a question that I already know the answer to, but when I first reached out, I said, what's the best piece of advice that you would give to someone considering HubSpot? I'm curious if you have the same.
Did I give you a really good answer back then?
Yeah, I'm going to answer for you. You had recommended the Operations Hub.
Yes, that's a good.
You were like, that was a done deal. Just sign it up, 100% worth the money. Maybe just shine a light on that real fast on why you recommend it.
I was thinking, there's a couple of things I could do here. So I'll make sure I get the right one. But yeah, Operations Hub. So I mentioned earlier that our technology firm uses ConnectWise as their CRM. what Operations Hub does is it automates data between ConnectWise into HubSpot, and it flows. You can choose if you want to have data flowing two ways, or you can put a blocker on it and have data just flow from ConnectWise as like that source of truth.
Yep.
And we get a lot of data coming in for just the technology company there. Unfortunately, it doesn't work with practice, so we can't use it in that instance. But if you do have a setup like what we have, and you've got a database over here that could use Operations Hub, super awesome to have something like that. It does save from some of that manual work down the line that you might have to do. So I highly recommend it. It's not expensive either. It is a few $100 a year to have it synced up.
And that was one of the things that you could build it however you want, almost kind of something similar to CRM like Salesforce.
Yeah, you can.
Right?
Yeah, you can customize the types of fields you want coming in. You just got to make sure everything's mapped. So
Yep.
X may equal Y, in some instances. But as long as you know what that mapping is, you can bring it right over.
Perfect. Well, I think we've given the audience some really great considerations for starting these discussions and vetting processes. If you have any interest in HubSpot or want to ask James or myself any questions about our experience, feel free to reach out. We'll share our contact information in the show notes. I know there's tons of people within AIM, different experiences. I think that's been my favorite part is just, in a Teams chat from one of our circles, someone's like, hey, we're exploring this program. What do you guys think? What are your pros and cons, lessons learned? So feel free to reach out to anybody. But otherwise, stay tuned. The rest of our season will be focused a different episode on a platform. So we've covered marketing automation, webinars. We'll get into AI. So a lot of fun topics coming. But James, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your time today. Stay tuned for the. Absolutely. All right. Stay tuned for more. Thanks, everybody.